What's going on, guys? You are hearing the voice of Tyron Stevenson, a community fitness coordinator for Bard College, and welcome to our first fitness skills video where I will do a fairly short presentation on how to develop the strength to do a push-up. This video will consist of 4 parts. We are going to look at the human anatomy and how it, in theory, will respond to developing strength to do these push-ups. We're going to look at the form of the push-up. We're going to look at progression exercises in order to develop strength for the push-up. And I'm going to briefly mention some advanced movements that you can work on if you happen to master the basic push-up. So the first part of this presentation will be anatomy. So the primary working muscles are going to be the chest muscles, that's your pecs, quote unquote. You're going to look at your delts, which is going to be where your chest and your arm meets up. And you're going to be looking at your triceps. And the most important thing to take away from the quote unquote primary working muscles is that these are going to be the muscles that you'll see the most significant definition in from doing a basic push-up. Also, these are probably going to be the muscles that are going to be most sore from a push-up workout. Other things to look at will be using the abdomen and the obliques, which are colloquially called the side abs. And these are pretty much going to be stabilizing your feet to your upper body. Next, we're going to look at the push-up form. The first form tip is to have a straight body. Notice that one could draw a rough line from the heels of my feet to the top of my head. And this is purposeful. This denotes that your core is tight, your head is facing down. When you go down into the push-up, you may have to move your face a little bit so that, like in this situation, I would move my face so that my face isn't in the grass. You want to have proper hip control, and you want to have a controlled spine as you go into that push-up. Next, you want to make sure that you have closed armpits. And by that, I mean you want to have your elbows straight back, so you should be able to pretty much lightly feel your arms grazing your body as you're going down. You don't want to have flared out elbows. This all increases the likelihood that you will have a shoulder injury. And so keeping that body all together will substantially decrease the likelihood of injury. The third form tip is hand placement. You want to make sure that your hands are directly under your chest muscles as you go down. You also want to make sure that you have wide open hands. When it comes to gripping things and hand placement, you want to make sure that you have as much surface area as possible, very similar to the legs of a chair. Now that we've gone over the 3 major form points of the basic push-up, allow me to show you the basic push-up in motion. You'll notice how you can see the straight line from the heels to the top of the head. You'll notice that that line is consistent throughout the movement. The hands aren't moving. The thumbs are touching the ground the entire time. As I go down, you'll notice that my arms are grazing the sides of my body. And the last tip I will give for doing the basic push-up form is that if you feel like your form is breaking, that is to say, if you feel like that line from your heels to your head is breaking, whether your hips are dropping or your fingers are not all on the ground, or your elbows are starting to flare out, just stop the push-up and start again. It's not worth the potential injury. For this next section, we are going to go over the progression exercises that can help you develop strength to get to a push-up. The first of these exercises is the wall push-up. The wall push-up is a fairly simple exercise, but it is quite effective in helping people learn the form or getting used to the muscle engagement for the actual basic push-up. And with the wall push-up, you want to maintain the same form. Your hands should still be right under your chest when you go down into the movement. You might have to stand on the tips of your toes. Other than that, the movement is pretty much the same. You want to make sure you have a straight line from the heels to the head. The next movement is the box push-up. This can also be done on a chair or really any flat surface that is shorter than you. And obviously, the shorter the surface is, the harder the push-up will be, because the ideal push-up would be on the ground, which is completely horizontal. And the same thing applies here. When you're going down, you want to make sure that your thumbs are right below where your chest is. You want to make sure that you're keeping consistent form, and you want to make sure that your elbows are tucked in, your armpits are closed, arms just lightly grazing past the body. The next progression exercise is the knee push-up. You'll notice that it's extremely similar to the basic push-up. The only difference is that the line comes from the knees to the top of the head, as opposed to from the back of the heels to the top of the head. And you're gonna make sure that you have all of the same form points as all of the other push-ups. The last progression exercise is perhaps the most important. It is the basic push-up, but you are going to adjust different aspects of it to make it slightly easier. And those aspects would include, you can move your feet farther apart, which will take some of the strain of the upper body having to balance the body. You can do controlled negatives. A negative is when you just go down as opposed to pushing up. So what you're going to do is you're going to control your pace as you go down, maybe count to 10 as you go down. Next, you can do the basic push-up, but only do half the movement. So as opposed to going face to ground, you can go face 50% to ground, face 70% to ground, until you get used to going 100% to the ground. And finally, and perhaps the easiest adjusted basic push-up, is simply just holding the top position. It's similar to a plank, except you'll be training your chest and tricep muscles to be able to sustain that top position of that basic push-up. And you can try that in any position. You can try it in the top position. You can do 50% of the push-up and hold it in that middle part, or you can do 70% and hold it there, just to get used to being able to control the momentum throughout the exercise. And finally, I'm going to briefly touch on some advanced movements that you can do once you learn the basic push-up. And some of those movements would include the basic push-up, the extended peak. So what I mean by this is, when you go down maybe 50, 70%, you hold that for like 3 counting seconds, and then you come back up. It is a very simple way to make the basic push-up slightly more difficult. Next, you could do the diamond push-up. The diamond push-up is when you make a diamond with your index fingers and your thumbs, and you center it on your sternum, the hard part of your chest, and you do the push-up from this point. The next advanced push-up movement is the explosive push-up. The explosive push-up is essentially the basic push-up, but as you're coming up, you want to try to push with as much force as you can. Ideally, your hands would be coming off of the ground. And lastly, you can do one-arm push-up training. If you can do a one-arm push-up, that's great, but most of the population can't do that. But in the process of training to be able to master the one-arm push-up, you'll obviously develop the chest and tricep strength that some of you may be looking for. With the one-arm push-up, it pretty much follows the same path of the basic push-up. You can do a one-arm push-up on a wall. You can do a one-arm push-up on a box. You can do knee one-arm push-ups. You can open your legs to make it easier for the one-arm push-up. You can use one hand slightly assisting that one arm for the one-arm push-up, and so it's essentially like an adjusted basic push-up in that sense. So if you're looking for more advanced push-up movements, you can start with any of these 4. If you have any more questions, obviously feel free to email me. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any requests, you can comment below. Obviously, you can email me about that as well. I recommend that you subscribe to this channel for more fitness tips, and follow Bard Moves on Instagrams, where there will be probably shortened versions of these types of videos on that Instagram page. Thank you, and have a fantastic day.